Good evening, one and all. This is the first day of our Java programming. So before we start, I just want to show you about the IDE installation. So preferably go for Intellij IDEA if you do not already have an IDE like VS Code. So in order to install Intellij IDE, you just need to type that in your browser. People are still joining. You need to simply type that in your browser, okay, Intellij IDEA, and then the first link that you see, click on that. So then you'll get to see this interface. Then what you have to do is click on this blue color download button. And when you click on that, you'll see two versions of this idea, of this IDE, Ultimate and Community. Ultimate one is a paid version and Community is a free version. So click on this download button, okay? And it will download. And then in the setup, you have to just click next, run and all that, okay? Next, 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 and finish. That is it, okay? And it will work for Java. Now, if you do not want to go for this, you already have VS Code or you want VS Code, then you can again in your browser simply type VS Code installation. Okay, for example, VS Code download, and this first link, and then download it for Windows if you are on Windows. Similarly, Linux or Mac if you are on these two operating systems. Okay, after you download VS Code, it works for different multiple languages, but we want it to run for Java. So you have to download an extension in VS Code. For that, when you open your VS Code, okay, you will get to see a screen like this, the welcome screen. So for the extension download, click on this extensions and then search for, I'm going to send the recording, so don't worry. You will get to know the steps. You have to search for Java extension. Okay, over here, click on this search thing, search magnifying glass, and search for Java extension. Okay, so you'll get this extension here. The very first one usually is by Microsoft, and that you have to install. There are two options, disable and uninstall, because I've already installed it. But for you, if you have not installed it, you'll have only one option, that is install. You have to click on that. And then you will be able to run the programs over here. Okay, if you want Eclipse also, if you want Eclipse, you can go for this one. Okay, this, go to this link, www.eclipse.org. And after going to that link, you'll get this web page and click on download. Once you click on download, you will get to the next page, that is this one, and then click on this download x86-64. This is for Eclipse. Okay, so I've shown you for Intellij IDEA, for Eclipse and VS Code. Preferably go for Intellij IDEA. Now, before installing any of these IDEs, you need to install one more thing, and that was explained in the videos which I had sent on the group. That is JDK, Java Development Kit. So you go to this website. In the video which I've sent you all, the YouTube video, you'll see the link. You'll get to know the link. I'll also put this link in the chat box for your reference. Okay, when you click on that link, you'll come to this web page, and then actually the web page is a little updated one compared to the one that you get to see in the video, because that video on YouTube has been recorded a bit earlier. So this is the updated web page. There is Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. Don't click on this documentation download. This is just for how Java works and JDK works, all that. Don't download that. Click on Windows if you're on Windows, and then this middle file, the .exe file that you have to download for the JDK, and then follow the steps in that video. Okay, so this will download when you click on that. Now I've cancelled it because I already have it. So I hope you got to know how to install the different IDEs. And my suggestion is preferably go for IntelliJ IDEA. Any doubts up till now? Anyone has tried it and any difficulty, anything like that? Okay, how many of you all have already installed IntelliJ IDEA? You can unmute yourself, no problem. I have installed, okay. Okay, so you can do it, and any other difficulties you can ask me. So now let us begin with the session. So initially we'll start off with some basics. Okay, like which is actually necessary. Otherwise, yes.
Is it compulsory to install JDK?
Yes, it is compulsory because without that, the IDE won't recognize the Java programs.
Okay.
Because if
I'm
you,
having a VS Code still also.
yes, still also you have to install JDK.
Okay.
So that the VS Code or IntelliJ IDEA or Eclipse, all of them will use that JDK, and the JDK along with the IDE or the JDK along with the code editor, it will help you to develop the Java programs. So it is compulsory for any editor. So now the basics which are important. Okay, so there are different ways in which you can classify the programming languages, and Java comes under object-oriented programming language. Object-oriented means it is a particular way of writing your program. The particular way in which the program is structured and the way the flow of the program is, like which part will execute first, which one will execute next. All that is different, okay, for different programming paradigms, means programming styles, you can say. So Java follows object-oriented programming style or paradigm. Okay. Even C++ follows that, and Kotlin as well, Python also. Okay. Now, software is basically a collection of programs, and it can help to find the solution to a particular task. There are different types of software, like system software, application software, programming software, engineering or scientific software, embedded or AI. This is just for your information I'm telling you. So there are certain differences between what is system software and what is application software. Okay, so system software is basically, it helps to run your application programs. So there are two things. One is the programs that you write, and one is the program which will help the other programs to run. Okay, so the programs which will help other programs to run is found in the system software, and it acts as an interface or a middle person between the program that you write and between the hardware. Okay, so this we won't see much in detail, but you should know it. And application programs are the ones which you write or the ones which are customized. For example, we'll see some examples. Web browsers, Microsoft Word, Chrome, all these applications you can get to see on your desktop. Okay, and these applications are the ones which are like you may need it or you may not need it. Not need it. Like for example, you may need Microsoft Word or you may not need it. Okay, it is sort of optional for the customers. But in order to run that, you need certain system software. Now, also to run certain program, may it be C++, Java, Python, anything, you need a compiler, interpreter, okay, or debugger and all that. So that comes under system software, compiler, debugger, and all. Okay, so these are the basic differences. One is the customized application and one is the generalized. Customized is for specific purpose you may need it, and the others you may need it most of the time to run your other programs or other applications. And one more thing is, as soon as you start your computer, the system software starts on its own. Whereas when you start your computer, you have to do it on your own for the application software. The system software starts on its own and you can use it. Whereas if you want to use Microsoft Word, you have to start it on your own and then you can use it. So this is the difference between the two. So you have hardware in the middle, in the interior at the core, and above that you have the system software. Now system software consists of two things: operating system and other functions. Whereas hardware consists of the physical components that you can see, like disk, mouse, printer, CPU, the motherboard, storage devices, and all. And above the system software, you have the other application software like word processor, Microsoft Word, your browser, Chrome, Safari, then different games that you play, and spreadsheet, Excel sheet. So you have your physical devices or the storage media, then on top of that operating system, and then on top of that the other applications. And operating system is a type of system software. Other examples of system software are compiler, debugger, assembler, and all that. Now, why do we need assembler, interpreter, compiler, and all? So during the introductory session, I had explained that the computer understands only binary language, or you can say machine language, which is in the form of zeros and ones. And we are writing our programs in C, C++, Java, Python, Kotlin, and all, which is close to the English language. Its syntax is similar to the English language. It is a high level language, and we are finding it easy to program in this high level language like Java. Okay, so this high level language is not directly understood by the computer. So you need either a compiler or an interpreter, which will convert this program which you have written into the zeros and ones. And only then the computer will be able to execute the file which is in the form of zeros and ones. So your program will be converted to zeros and ones, and that will get executed, zeros and ones. Similarly, if you have assembly level program, okay, assembly level program is before the high level language. It consists of add, MOV instructions, usually used for microprocessor programming. So that also needs to get converted into zeros and ones. Everything has to be converted into zeros and ones. It is done with the help of assembler. Now, as I said, this assembler, interpreter, compiler are system softwares. Okay. Now, you might have studied about Python programming language. So can you tell me Python uses interpreter or compiler? Anyone can answer?
Interpreter.
Interpreter.
Yes, very good. Okay, so it uses interpreter. And what does C, C++ use? Anyone knows?
Compiler.
Compiler.
Yes, very correct. So compiler is used by C, C++. And does anyone know about Java? What Java uses?
Compiler.
Any other answer?
Interpreter.
Okay, so the correct answer is actually it uses both. Okay, it uses compiler first and then interpreter. That also I'll tell you how and why. It does the processing in two phases. One is by the use of compiler, and the next is by the use of interpreter. Actually, interpreter is within another program, and that program will run. So I'll tell you that, but the answer is it uses both. So it uses interpreter as well as compiler. So what is the basic difference that you all might know is interpreter does line by line execution. So first line, it will check. If there is no error, it will display the output for the first line. Second line, it will analyze. No error, it will display. Third line, no error, it will display. If there is an error at line number 4, it will stop. It will give you the error message. This is how interpreter works. But compiler, what it will do, all the lines in your program, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to whichever line number, it will execute, it will analyze. And then if there is no error, it will give the proper output. But if there is error at suppose line number 3, then directly it will give you the error message for line number 3. Similarly, at line number 5, if you have an error, it will give you the error message at line number 5 together, all the error messages together. That means even if line number 1 is correct, it will not execute because there is at least one error in your program. So even if there is at least one error, it will give you the error message and nothing will be executed. But in interpreter, if there is some error, only for that particular line it will give. So I'll give you a short summary once again what is interpreter and compiler. Suppose you have 4 lines in your program. At line number 3, you have an error. So what interpreter will do, line number 1 will get executed, line number 2 will get executed, line number 3, error message will be shown. What about line number 4? It will not get executed. As soon as you reach an error, it will stop. Further, if anything is correct, it will not execute. Okay, here it will stop. But in compiler, what will happen? All error messages at line number 3, suppose line number 10, all will be displayed and nothing will get executed. So this is the main difference. So Ruby and Python uses interpreter, C++ uses compiler. And there are other differences also, the speed of execution and all that. You can read it later when I send you. Then you already know what is algorithm, flowchart, and pseudocode. They are the steps that you must follow before running your program so that you can design your program properly. Okay, now let's get to Java. So you use JDK. I just told you that you need to install JDK. Now what is this JDK and why you need it? It is one of the 3 technologies or 3 packages used in Java programming. And they will help you to run your Java programs, to develop your Java programs and all. So it is necessary. If you have any code editor, then also you have to install, download JDK. Along with JDK, you need JVM also. JVM means Java Virtual Machine. And along with these two, you need JRE as well, Java Runtime Environment. But we do not install 3 things. We'll install only one thing, that is JDK. Why? Because if you install JDK, you will get JRE and JVM automatically. Okay, just install JDK and you'll get the other 2, that is JVM and JRE, automatically. Why? That we'll see in the next slide. And it is important to differentiate between JRE, JVM, JDK. So the difference is that JVM, Java Virtual Machine, is a platform component. Now, what do I mean by that? I'll just show you. So why I'm saying that JDK, if you install, you'll get the other 3 is because if you install JDK, inside JDK you have JRE, that is Java Runtime Environment. And inside JDK you have Java C. Java compiler is nothing but Java C or Java you can call. Okay, Java C means Java compiler. So you have JRE and Java compiler inside JDK. And inside JRE, what you have different libraries, different packages, different classes, different functions. That means predefined code, already existing code, which the developers have provided for you, which you can directly use. Okay, predefined already existing code, which you have not written. Okay, that is already there. And inside JRE, along with that predefined code, you have JVM. So if you see JDK, you can install, you will get all what is inside JDK. And what is the purpose of JVM is it makes the Java programs platform independent. Means if you're writing on Windows a program in Java, that same program you just share it to a user who uses Mac OS and he can directly execute it on his system. If you share that same program written on Windows with some other person who uses Linux, he can directly use that program. Okay, just the steps of executing will be different, but the program structure, the syntax, semantics, how you write your program, all that will be same. Only the way you execute it or the way you run it may differ a bit. Okay, means the commands if you're using command line interface and all that. So these were the things about what is JDK and what you have inside JDK. Now let us see what is the actual purpose. So it, as I said, JVM, Java Virtual Machine, will help to make the Java program platform independent. But JVM itself is platform dependent. So I've created one summary over here. See here, JDK is platform dependent. Means what? If you want to install JDK, JDK for Linux is different. JDK for Linux is different. JDK for Mac is different. JDK for Windows is just a minute. Oh, sorry. JVM is platform dependent, and JDK is also platform dependent, and JRE, all 3 are platform dependent. Okay, not only JDK, all 3 of these are platform dependent. So if you're installing JDK, you will get to see the installation for, as I showed you over here when we were installing JDK in this over here, JDK installations, you have Linux, Mac OS, as well as Windows. For all these 3, you have to install JDK differently. Okay, when I showed you JDK installation, that is why.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Can you please explain JDK again? What is JDK?
Yes, I have not yet explained it fully. I'm just telling you that it is platform dependent. So I'll get to that point also. What is JDK? So if you are installing JDK, it is separate for each operating system. Okay. So now, as you asked me, what is JDK? So JDK is Java Development Kit. And in this kit, means you can call it a toolbox if you want. In this kit, you have different features like I showed you this tree diagram. In this you have JRE, okay, and you have Java compiler. Now Java compiler is necessary for that conversion, for your high level language to a lower level language. Okay, Java compiler is used for that. What is the use of JRE? JRE is used so that you can have the predefined code which is inside the JRE, this one. Okay, and you have JVM, Java Virtual Machine. Why you need Java Virtual Machine? Because it makes it platform independent. Okay, so in JDK you have different features and you need those features, so you have to install JDK. Now sometimes people get confused between JVM and JRE. So note that JVM is found inside JRE. Now what are these two? JVM is the thing that makes it platform independent, but JVM is also platform dependent. Okay, because of JVM you're able to make your program as independent, but JVM is dependent on the operating system. Okay, I hope this is clear. JVM depends on the type of operating system, but if you have JVM, you can make the program platform independent. Then what is JRE? It is, and JVM will help you to execute your programs. Like when you have written your total program, you want to run it. That time JVM will help you. Then what is the use of JRE? It is on disk, means it is in your disk storage of your computer. It is the on disk part of Java that creates the virtual machine. Right? I showed you the diagram. If you want to create your Java virtual machine, JRE runtime environment will help you. Okay, so it will help to create Java virtual machine. And I just now said why you need Java virtual machine, so that your programs are platform independent. Okay, so if you develop that kit, Java development kit, inside that you'll have Java runtime environment and the compiler. And inside the runtime environment, you'll have the libraries, predefined code, as well as the JVM. So I hope the use of all these three are clear till now. Any doubts till now? Or should I repeat anything? You can ask me, I can repeat. No doubts?
Hello?
Yes.
Excuse me. Can you repeat that JVM? It's I heard that it's independent and it's dependent. So I got confused. It's properly like that, or can you repeat that JVM?
Yes, yes. JVM is if you are if the Java development kit that is dependent on the platform for Linux, Windows, and Linux for Mac. So JDK is platform dependent. Okay, and inside that you have JRE and JVM. So JRE and JVM, they are also platform dependent. Okay, so all three, the JDK, JRE, and JVM, all three are dependent. For Linux, it is different. Mac it is different, and Windows it is different. Now JDK is dependent on the platform. Okay, that you have understood. But what is the use of JDK? If you are creating a Java program, you're writing a Java program to make this program as independent. Because I said that we want to execute the same program on the different machines, different operating systems. So to make the program independent, you need to have the JDK. So JDK itself is dependent on the platform and the operating system. But to make the Java program that you write as independent, you will need the JDK. So the Java program is independent, but to make it independent, you need JDK. If you do not have JDK, the Java program that you write has to be written differently for different system. But we do not want that. So we have to install the JDK for our required operating system, and that will enable our program to become independent. Have you understood?
Yeah.
Okay. So this was about what all you need before you start writing your program. Okay, and JVM and JRE are different. The difference between that is inside JRE you have JVM. Why you need JRE? To create the JVM. Okay, it is for the development part. And JVM, why you need to execute, to run after you have created. Okay, to run the program after you have created the program, you need JVM. So basically you can say that JVM is the one responsible for executing the program. And JDK allows the developers to create the programs, and it is executed and run by these two. Okay, that is okay. Now developers who are new to Java often confuse between JDK and the JRE. Okay, but it is simple. I've told you that you first have JDK. Inside that you will have JRE, and inside the JRE what you will have? JVM. Okay, so just remember this. It can be asked in interviews. And the distinction is that JDK is a package of tools. As I said, it is a toolkit. for developing the Java-based programs or software, whereas JRE is used to run that software or run that program. Okay. So just install JDK and you're good to go. Now, once you write your Java program, the extension for that program is .java. Okay, suppose I write my program, I've written it. How will I save that program? With some name. Okay, some name has to be given to this program file. Suppose I call it first program. Okay, first, and then you have to give the extension to this file. Otherwise, how the computer will understand what type of file it is. For example, if you have your notepad, the extension is usually .txt. For your Word files, it is .doc. For PPTs, it is .ppt or .pptx. For web-based pages, it is .html or .htm. Okay, there are different extensions to recognize the type of file so that we know what content is stored inside that file. So similarly, for the Java programs, you have the extension .java, Java. For Python, can you tell me what is the extension?
.py.
Very good.
.py.
Very good. For C programs, anyone?
.c.
Yes,
C.
correct.
.cpp.
For C, very good. And for C++ programs?
.cpp.
.cpp.
Yes, excellent. So each program has its own extension for its file. Now this program, you have written it, okay. Now you want to execute it, okay. Till now you have not executed anything. You have just written your program. Now comes the performance of the compiler, that is Java C. The Java compiler is called as Java C. Okay, the name of the compiler, or people usually refer it as Java C, so that you know it is a Java compiler. For C++, you have different compiler. Okay. So the program that you write will be passed or sent as a input to the compiler. Okay, whatever you have written, you're sending it to the compiler as an input. Now the compiler will work on whatever you have written inside your program. What it will do to your program is some conversion so that the computer understands. What conversion it will do now? It will convert your program into some intermediate form of code. Now this intermediate code is not zeros and ones. Okay, this code that you are going to convert using the compiler is not in the form of zeros and ones. Means the output of the compiler is not yet understood by the machine, because here you have your syntax. For example, you have certain print, you have certain import and all such statements. Okay, they are like English statements. So you have written that in your program. Now after you go and pass it to the compiler, all these print statements, all these program statements, they'll get converted to an intermediate form, some middle form, not zeros and ones. Okay, it is not zeros and ones, it is something else. Intermediate code, middle code, you can call it. And this code, it will be stored in a file whose extension is .class. Okay, so your program had the extension .java. You did some conversion using the compiler, and now it is stored in another file which is called as .class file. It has the extension .class. Okay, and usually the name of this file is same as that of your program name. Okay, usually you can check that out. We'll check that out later. Usually it will be first.class. Okay, because we have named a program as first.java, so usually it will be first.class. Now this is some middle code. It is not zeros and ones, so we have to convert to zeros and ones. Now you will use JVM. Okay, means whatever the bytecode file is there, that will be given as input to the JVM. Okay, so the .class file is given as input to JVM. Now the JVM, inside JVM, we have seen that we have JDK, inside JDK, JRE, inside that JVM. What is inside JVM? JVM has a sort of interpreter. Okay, it's not actually interpreter, but something like an interpreter, some program which acts as an interpreter, and that will convert this byte code in the form of zeros and ones. Okay, so finally you have got your zeros and ones. And as I said, your JVM is also dependent on the operating system. So it is different for Linux, it is different for Mac, and it is different for Windows. But you have to install only the JDK, as I said. So since your JDK is dependent on the platform, inside that the JRE will also be dependent on the platform, and your JVM is also dependent on the platform. So accordingly, any one. So only I've shown the 3 divisions. Any one JVM, depending on your system, will be used. If you are on Windows, you'll go for this 3rd branch. This one you'll follow. Otherwise, you'll go for this 2nd one. Otherwise, you'll go for this 1st one. So since I am on Windows, this from here I've come all the way here, and then I'm going this way. Okay, I won't see these 2. I'll go only for the third branch. Okay, I hope you all got this. So now what we had a .java file. It was in the form of high-level language. Then we converted into the .class file, which is a middle code or byte code or intermediate code. And finally, we have got it in the form of zeros and ones. So this is the conversion process. And this is done automatically, okay? Once you go for running your program, when you click on that run option, all this will happen automatically. You don't have to do it. If you are in an IDE. Now there's also another alternative. If you do not have IDE, what you'll do? You can execute your same Java program using the command line interface. Now what is command line interface? I'll just show you. So usually there are two types of interfaces that you have on your laptop or computer. One is graphical user interface and one is this black colored box. Not necessarily it is black colored box only. It may be white color or blue color also at times. You have different command lines. Okay, this is usually for Windows. And you can use this if you want to access anything, or simply if I don't want to use this black colored interface or dialog box, I can simply click on whichever file I want and it will open. This opening any file can be done using your command line also. Okay, this will study later how to run programs using the command line because it is difficult. You have to use certain commands to execute your program, and that is not necessary now. That we'll see little later, but this is also a possibility. And why people use command line interface? Usually they use it if they are an advanced programmer. Now, since we are beginners and learners, we are using the integrated development environment. Why? It will highlight the errors before we compile. Okay. Otherwise, what happens before running the program, you'll get to know the errors in your IDE. That also I'll show you so that it will be efficient. Then and there you'll be able to rectify. Otherwise, if you do not know the errors beforehand and then you go to execute, after executing, it will show all the errors. Then you may find it a little difficult and all. So as you're programming, it will highlight the errors because it is smart, it is an IDE, and then it will be better for you as a learner. Okay, so if you want to use this command line interface, only install JDK, no need to install any IDE. And then using certain commands, you can run it. But if you want IDE, it is always a good choice. So go for Intellij IDE. This is the interface for IDE of Intellij IDEA. I'll show you how to use it. So any doubts till now? Anything I need to repeat? Okay, you can ask me, no problem. You can unmute yourself or put it in the chat box. Have you understood?
Yes.
Okay. So once again, we have our Java program. We pass it to the JavaC compiler. It is converted into bytecode. Then the JVM, which is inside the JRE, which is inside the JDK, will act on it, and you'll get your machine understandable code. So this is just a diagram to represent the same thing. We have seen the tree diagram. This diagram, I represent it using Venn diagram. That is like how you represent sets using Venn diagrams. For example, set A intersection set B. We use this common area for intersection, right? So such Venn diagrams I've used here. So you have JDK outside. Inside that you have JRE and your compiler. And inside JRE you have JVM along with certain files and libraries. And note that the Java program that you write is platform independent. Why? Because you have the JDK. Okay. Since you have the JDK, it is which has the JRE, which has the JVM, it is platform independent. Your Java program that you write. And since your program is independent, it is good. Then your bytecode that is generated after the compilation, that is also independent. Means the same bytecode, okay, this can be used as input for different platforms. That is why from here you have this branch coming out. Okay, till here everything is same. Everything is platform independent. It is the same for all the platforms. But after the bytecode stage, you have to pass it to different JVM. Okay, so you can remember that your programs that you write and after the compilation, the bytecode that you get, it is independent. It will work for all the platforms. But after that, you have to, all the components, that is JVM, JRE, JDK, all are dependent, different for different operating system. Okay, so before we start off with the basic programming, any doubts still here? Okay. Now you already know what is data type, data variables and all that. So just a brief overview so that we can learn more concepts in less time. So there are different types of data which can be represented in your program. You can have text, for example, good morning. This is a sentence or it is written in English, right? So such text, it is a collection of letters. Each letter you can call it a character, like G is a character, O is a character, and so on. So a collection of characters forms a string actually. It is called a string instead of text. Okay, in layman terms, it is called as text, but text is actually string. And string is always within double quotes in Java. Single quote will not work. For Python, it works, but in Java, you have to use double quote. C also double quote. So this was one type of data. Sentences, words, letters, you can represent. Next is numbers. Now numbers are also of different types. For example, you can have whole numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. You may have natural numbers, which is 1, 2, 3, and so on. You may have integers, which is 0. It may be plus or minus 1. It may be plus or minus 2. Okay, all these categories, that is 0 to infinity, 1 to infinity, or 0 plus minus 1 plus minus 2. All these are numbers. Okay, and this all these three categories are called as it is called as integers. Okay, integer. And this integer is represented with the int data type. Okay, we'll see that later. But for now, remember that all these are integers. 0 to infinity, 1 to infinity, or plus minus numbers. They are all integers. Then another thing, you have float. Floating point means the it is a float only. Anything with a point is float. 0.0 is also float. Okay. Then you have a Boolean, that is true or false. There are only two values, true or false. And then you can have your own data types also, that is user defined data type. Okay, that is like you can name the data type what you want. That we'll see when we see object oriented programming. So these are the different types of data that you can represent in your program. Now, which are the different data types? You can have basic or simple data types. Just a minute. So in simple, basic, or primitive, there are two types broadly, Boolean and numeric. Boolean means how you'll write Boolean in your program. You cannot write capital B OOLEAN. You must write small b OOLEAN. Okay, and it is case sensitive, means capital B and small b is different, and only the small b that is recognized for Boolean. If you write capital B OOLEAN, it is not possible. It will give you error. So small b OOLEAN. Then you have numeric. In numeric, you have another type, that is character, and you have another thing is integral. Now character is what? A single character. For example, small a or capital A or small z, capital J. Okay, all these are characters. And how to make them a character is you must enclose it within single quote. Okay, always single quote for a single character usually. Okay, but if you write one within a single quote, and if you write one just like that, okay, if you write one within single quote, it is considered as a character. But if you write one just like that, it is called as integer. Okay, so I hope you know this difference between integer and character. Anything, okay, anything within your single quote becomes a character. If you write @ within your within your single quote, it becomes a character. If you write question mark inside single quote, it becomes a character. If you write 5.0 inside your single quote, it becomes character. But if you write 5.0 just like that, it is a floating point number. So I hope you get this difference. So character, if you want to mention that it is a character inside your program, you must write char and not character. Okay, char you must write. Now what is integral type is integer, or it may be floating point value. Now integer also has further different types like byte, short, int, long. We'll see what this means. And then floating point also has two types, that is float and double. Okay. Then other things you have like composite or non-primitive, that is string array, that we'll see later. I've already told you string is a collection of characters. So now let us see examples of all these types. So Boolean example is either true or false. Character I just now showed you anything within a single quote. Now integer I've told you. Now what is the difference between byte, short, int, long, that we will see. And float and double, what is the difference, that also we will see. Now Boolean, now those were the types of data. You can have character data, you can have integer data, you can have floating point data. But what are the data types? They are Boolean, char, then you have 4 int types, that is byte, short, int, long. And then you have 2 floating types, that is float and double. Now default value and default size. Now default value is usually for, it comes in object oriented types, that is for instance and all those things that we'll see later. Okay, and you have default size, which is for all types of variables. Those variables may be instance variables, those variables may be local variables. Default size comes for all the variables. So we'll see this default value later on. Now you just skip this. Default size means what? If you have a Boolean, if you have a variable whose data type is Boolean, then what type of value you can store, that is one thing, and what is the size of that value that you can store. Okay, so whatever you store in a Boolean variable, its size should be 1 byte only. Okay, it cannot exceed this. This is the default size by default, means you cannot change it. Okay, then you have char. How much data you can store inside a character variable? You can store 2 bytes of data. Okay, now I'm saying byte, bit and all. Can you tell me what is 1 bit, if you know?
8 bytes.
No, 1 bit is actually 0 or 1. If you write 0, it means it is 1 bit. If you write 1, means it is 1 bit. Okay, just a minute. If you write a single 0, it is 1 bit. If you write a single 1, that is also 1 bit. Now what is 2 bits? 2 bits. 2 bits means 2 bits. That means you can either have 0, 0, you may either have 0, 1, you may either have 1, 0, you may either have 1, 1. Okay, so all these are, this is an example of 2 bits. Means 2 bits means 1 bit and 1 bit are together. Similarly, what is 3 bits? You'll have 3 spaces and you can fill them with combination of 0 and 1. Right? So this is the meaning of 1 bit. 1 bit means either 0 or 1. 2 bits means you can club 1 bit 2 times. If 3 bits means 3 times you have to keep single bit. 4 bits means 4 spaces you can fill using either 0 or 1. Okay, so this is the meaning of bit. Then what is byte? Anyone knows what is byte?
8 bits.
Yes, byte means 8 bits. Correct. So 8 bits means you have 8 spaces to fill. And each space can be filled with either 0 or 1. Okay, so you might be knowing that you have 8 spaces and you can fill them with any 2 values. So as per permutation and combination, 2 raised to 8 combinations are possible. So what do I mean by different permutations and combinations means? Either you can have 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 8 times, or you may have 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 8 times, or you may have 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and last bit might be 1. Similarly, you may have 0, 0, 0, then 1, then 0. So there are different ways you can fill these 8 spaces. Okay, and how many ways you have? 2 raised to 8 ways. Okay, so this is just like I just wanted to give additional information. But 1 bit means either 0 or 1. 1 byte means 8 bits. So what will be 2 bytes? How many bits? Anyone?
16 bits.
16.
Very good. 16 bits.
16.
Yeah. Similarly, 3 bytes means how many bits?
24 bits.
24.
Yes, 24. So you can have multiples of 8. 8, 16, 24, 32 and so on. Okay. So this is bit and byte. That means Boolean is 1 bit, means either true or false. And inside your computer's memory, you cannot store it as true and or false. True means it is represented as 1 inside your memory. And if it is false, it is represented as 0 inside your memory. Now char is 2 bytes, means 16 bits. Now I said character means what? You may have capital A, you may have small a, and so on. Now this capital A is a letter actually, and you cannot store this letter directly inside your computer memory. This letter will be stored in the form of its ASCII equivalent code. Means capital A, if you want to represent it in the form of integer, it is equal to 65. Similarly, if you want to store capital B inside the memory of your computer, it is nothing but represented as 66. And so on, you go up to Z, okay? Up to Z, which is 90. Okay, similarly, you have it for small a and up to small z. So each and every letter has its ASCII code. Similarly, question mark has its own ASCII code, exclamation mark has its own ASCII code, and so on. If I want to show you the different ASCII codes, just give me a minute. I need to open it.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, why 1 byte is equals to only 8 bits? Can you explain that once more again?
Because that is the way you can represent data in your computer. Okay, I'll show you. I'm going to explain in detail again, but just a minute.
Okay, sir.
I just want to show the ASCII values. So see, these are the ASCII values. So as I said, capital A starts from 65, then 66, 67, and so on, and you go up to 90 for capital Z. What about small a? It starts from 97, and you go up to small z, that is 122. Okay, all these are your 26 letters A to Z, and this is the capital letters. These are the lowercase, it's called lowercase. Small a to small z is called lowercase, and uppercase is called as your capital letters, capital A to capital Z. And you have different other characters like your space or your exclamation mark, dollar, hashtag, and all. They also have the ASCII values. Okay, your greater than sign, question mark, equal to, everything has ASCII value. Okay, and it starts from 32 and it goes up to 127. Okay, every key on your keyboard has a corresponding ASCII value. So that was for character, how it is represented in memory. Then you have byte, short, int, long, and all that. So byte, there's only a see, byte, short, int, long all stand for integer values. That means 12, 106, 2000, all these are integer values, and these are can be represented using either byte, either short, either int, or either long. When we see the programming examples, it will become clear. But what is the difference between them is byte occupies the space of only 1 byte in memory. If the data type is short, it can occupy 2 bytes inside your computer memory. If the data type is int, it can occupy 4 bytes inside your computer memory. If the data type is long, it can occupy 8 bytes in your computer memory. So higher the size, more precise will be the value that gets stored. Okay, means if you have long variable and the data that you store in long, it will be more precisely stored inside the memory as compared to the byte variable. Okay, when we see programming examples, I'll show you how it works. Then we have float, and it is of 4 bytes. 4 bytes means each byte is of 8 bits, so 4 8s are 32 bits. Similarly, double, it is 8 bytes. So 8 bytes, so just a minute. 8 bytes is how many bits? 8 bytes is 8 bytes. 8 bytes is 32 bits. 8 bytes is 32 bits. 8 bytes is 8 bytes. So 8 bytes is 8 bytes. 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 Now we know that 1 byte is 8. Just a minute. 1 byte is 8 bits. So 8 bytes is 8 into 8. That is 64 bits. Okay, this way you can convert, okay, if you want. We'll see data types and data variables in more detail. But for now, let us get to variables and then I'll explain about how it is stored in memory. So a computer memory is linear, okay, remember that. Linear means one after the other, the space is available. Means you'll have one block here to store something. You'll have the next block, and so on. Okay, one after the other means linear. So before this block, you have this block. After this block, you'll have this block, means one after the other. To store the values in memory, we need to reserve some space. Now, you know a variable that you can store some value in the variable, but what is the actual meaning of variable? So the actual meaning of variable is there is some location inside your computer memory and that will be given for a particular variable. Suppose you have a variable with the name A, then this variable A has certain space which it will occupy inside this block of memory. So you can say that this block of memory is named as A, okay, means it is referred to as A, means the variable A, whatever value this variable A will store, that variable A value of that variable A will be stored in this block. Suppose A is equal to 15, I say, then that value 15 will be stored in this block. Suppose I say variable B and I'm storing the value 3 inside that, then inside the block which is given for this B variable, I will write 3, means automatically 3 will get stored there. So we have to reserve some space for each variable. Otherwise, how will store it in your memory? How the computer will know that B has the value 3? How will the computer know that C has the value 4? Because each variable has certain memory occupied inside the memory of your computer, and inside that memory, you will store the value for that variable. Okay, I'll show you example ahead. Now each variable has a specific type like int, char, string, and so on. And why it is called variable? Because you can store the value in the variable and it may change. Initially, A may be equal to 5. Then after some lines of code, I'm saying A becomes equal to 12. Okay, so the value of A is changing, right? The name of the variable is A only, but the value that A is holding is changing. That is why this A is called as a variable. So now how it is stored in memory? Suppose A is equal to 5.7, I say. Now B, I'm writing it as a string, okay, because double quote. And C, I'm writing as an integer 23. A is what? Floating point value. B is a string, it stores a string value, and C is storing a integer value. So A has certain block which is allocated to it. Allocated means A has been given some block of memory. Okay, A has been given some block of memory from the total memory inside your computer. Your computer has some big chunk of memory. From that, some section is given for A. And in that section, I'm going to store the value of A, as you can see. Okay, and wherever the memory is free, that part will be given to A. It is not compulsory that if I have 3 blocks, block number 1 is full and block number 2 is full, and then I'm going to store in block number 3 only, not compulsory. I may store in block number 4 also. Wherever space is available, I can store it. Means computer will allocate that memory. Computer will on its own give that memory to A variable. Then B is a string, so that will be stored somewhere. Okay, and here I have shown you only one block, not necessary one block. It may occupy more than one block. Why? I will tell you. C has the value 123. It is occupied in this inside this block. Okay, now each block, that means each of these rectangles that you can see, this is one block, this is another block, this is another block, this is another block. So you have different blocks inside the total memory. Each block is called as, each block can store what size of data. Okay, each block can store 8 bits. Okay, so whichever operating system you take, whether it is 64-bit OS, whether it is 32-bit OS, whether it is 16-bit OS, okay, 16-bit OS means at a time 16 bits can be processed by the processor of your laptop or computer. If I say it is a 32-bit operating system, it means that at a time the computer will take 32 bits and work on that. If I say 64 bits means at a time the computer will take 64 bits ka data and work on that. Okay, means at a time how much data the computer can process, that is indicated by the size of the operating system. If I say 32-bit OS, 32 bits will be taken at a time. then next 32 bits will be taken, then next 32 bits will be taken, and some work will be done on them. Okay, so if I'm saying my computer has certain memory, and the memory is divided into different blocks, and I am saying that what is the size of each block? 8 bits. Okay, each block is of size 8 bits. So this block is also of size 8. This block is also of size 8 bits. This is also of size 8 bits. This is also of size 8 bits. So if I'm saying 16-bit OS, that means at a time I will read or access 2 blocks. Right? Do you agree with me? If I'm saying 16-bit
Yes, sir.
OS, yeah, at a time I'm taking 16 bits, means at a time I will access 2 blocks. If I'm saying 32 bits, means I have to access 4 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Why? Because 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8 is 32. Okay. So as I said, you have multiples of 8. And that is why the memory is divided into 8-bit, 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 8-bit. So it doesn't matter if you have 16-bit OS, each block will be of 8 bits only. Doesn't matter if you have 32-bit OS, each block will be of 8 bits only. And how you will access 32-bit data? By a particular set of blocks. If it is 16-bit OS, access 2 blocks at a time. If it is 32-bit OS, access 4 blocks at a time. If it is 64-bit OS, how many blocks I'll access at a time? Anyone?
8.
8.
Very good. 8 bits. Very good answer. 8 bits. 8 blocks. Okay, 8 blocks at a time. Similarly, you can have 8-bit OS, then you have, you have 16-bit OS, you have 32-bit OS, you have 128-bit OS, 64-bit OS. Also, you can have this. Okay, means all these are, you can express in terms of powers of 8. Okay, that is why the memory is divided into blocks, and each block is of 8 bits. That means 1 byte. That is why sometimes you may come across in computer organization as the memory is byte wide, because 8 bits means 1 byte. So byte by byte, the memory is divided. So it is called byte wide memory. Byte wide memory. Now, how you will recognize that which block I'm giving for A variable? How you will recognize for which block is being given to B variable, right? Because I want to access the value of B. How I will access? The computer will do it for me. How the computer will do it? It will search for that block which has been given to B variable, and it will access the value inside that block. But how the computer will know that which is that block? Because I said that wherever space is available, you'll store the value. So how to identify that block? Based on its address. So if you consider this entire world, suppose there are only 2 people suppose there are 100 people in this world. If you want to locate the person number 1, then you can locate him by his address inside this world. Suppose he stays in Pune, his address is Pune. So if you go to Pune, you'll find him. Okay. If you want to find a person who lives in Hadapsar, you need to know that he stays in Hadapsar. Suppose you want to find person 2. You need to know the address of that person, then only you can find him, right? Similarly, if you need to search that particular block for the particular variable, you need to know the address of that variable. Then only you'll find it. So this entire block that you can see is, suppose, your world, and each block inside is a particular place like Pune, Hadapsar, and so on. This is how you can search the particular value, by the address of that block. Okay. Any doubts still here? Yes, no?
No.
Okay.
No doubt.
Okay, now how you can okay, we can see this next time if you want, because it's already 6 o'clock, and for now this much is enough. So quickly put your, you have already put your attendance, and others who have not put, you all can put it. And any doubts you can ask me now. Is everything clear till now? This was just the basics. So next time we'll run our programs. Any doubts? And suppose if in your VS editor, yes, ask me. Yes.
Actually, you said that one block has 8 bit of size.
Yes.
So some of the data types have more than that. They want a space to store that value.
Yes.
How
so
they do it?
Yeah. So in that case, you'll have to use more than one block. For example, if int you are considering, okay, int has the size of 4 bytes. So we know that each block is of 8 bytes. Okay, so I'll show you over here. So int has the size of 8 bytes. So one block is of 1 byte. So how many blocks you need? 8 blocks. So here I have 8 blocks. So for storing this int variable, see here, just for your convenience, I showed the value inside one block only. But actually what happens, since int occupies 8 bytes, we'll have to use 8 blocks together. So if I'm saying inside an int variable, I'm going to store the value 12, suppose, then this value 12 will be stored inside your 8 blocks in the form of zeros and ones. Okay, computer will not store as it as 1, 2, that is 12. It will store in the form of zeros and ones, and it will occupy 8 blocks. Similarly, if you have short, it occupies 2 bytes. That means you have to use only 2 blocks. Is it clear?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, welcome. Any other doubt? If no doubts, you can leave this meeting. Thank you for attending.
Can we get the PPT?
Yes, so actually I have not explained much today. So next time I'll send it on the learning management system.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome. Any other doubts?
So in VS Code, do we have to write a package Java for run program?
Usually it works without the project thing also. For example, you may get an error in VS Code.
Yeah, I'm getting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
coming error.
So
Yeah,
I
so
put package Java semicolon, then it works.
yeah, so either you can use package, otherwise without package. See, this one was running just now. See, I'm getting the output here also. I'm printing hello, and that is coming over here. So what you have to do is, you may see one means you have to follow the steps in that. Okay, there's one more video for VS Code. I'll send that. You have to install certain extension, and then you will get some error over here, like this highlight part. So you can click on view problem, and it is saying that non-project file. That means the package is not there, or it is not within a project. So either you can click on this quick fix and select any one option, and then try running it. Otherwise, if you're still getting an error, then try to search online. Otherwise, if it's still not going, then go for IntelliJ IDEA for Java. Okay, because for me, I'm not getting that error as of now. So maybe there's some, try to reinstall VS Code if you want, and then it should work.
Okay.
Yeah. If no more doubts, I can end this meeting.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah, welcome.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have one query.
Yes.
The size of the char is 1 byte, not 2 byte, I guess.
No, it is different for each language. So in C, C++, it is 1 byte for char, but in Java, it becomes 2 bytes.
And for string?
So string is actually collection of characters, right? So each character occupies 2 bytes. So depending on that, if your string has 4 characters, then 4 to the 8 bytes will be the size of your string. And this we can change it also using some dynamic memory allocation concepts, and that we will see when we study strings. But characters,
Okay.
2 bytes. Yeah.
So 2 bytes is for 64-bit operating system, right?
No, character in general is for any system, it is for 2 bytes for Java.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, I'm stopping this.
Thank you.